Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through stacks of ideas to bring you the core insights. Today, we're diving into something really central from Jesus' teachings. It gets right to the heart of what it means to be human and what it means to actually love. We're working with some really helpful material from John Piper, specifically his thoughts on all that Jesus commanded. And we're zeroing in on those famous words from Matthew 22:39. This deep dive is for you, our listener, if you're wanting to really grasp these commands and, how they connect to our lives, our desires.
Yeah, it's a command that, on the surface, looks pretty straightforward. Love your neighbor as yourself. Simple, right? But when you dig in, as Piper does, you find it holds this radical challenge. It can really reshape how we think about, well, human longing, our relationship with God, with others. So our goal today is to unpack that. We'll look at self-love, what sin or missing the mark really is at its root, and importantly, how finding our ultimate satisfaction in God makes loving others not just, something we should do, but something that flows out almost joyfully. We want to consider what that means for happiness, true happiness, and how we pursue what's genuinely good.
Okay, let's get into it. Matthew 22:39. Love your neighbor as yourself. The source material calls this very radical. Why? What makes it so, radical?
Well, the material points out it's radical because it doesn't just, trim the branches. It cuts right to the root of human brokenness. It exposes it. And then by God's grace, it works to sever it. So it's not just about outward actions like being nicer. It's confronting the deepest stuff inside us, our inner being. It really goes deep, unlike maybe some moral codes that just focus on the outside. Jesus is going internal here.
Okay, the root. So what is that root of brokenness this command is getting at? How does the source define it?
The source defines it pretty clearly. It says the root is the desire for our own happiness apart from God, and apart from whether others find their eternal happiness in God. Think about that for a second. It's not just about doing bad things. It's saying that underneath, well, all our shortcomings, all the ways we miss God's design, is this drive to be happy, but it's disconnected. Disconnected from God's glory, his splendor. And it's also cut off from genuinely caring if others find their joy in God too. So this command, love your neighbor as yourself, it pushes right against that fundamental disconnect. It's trying to re-aim our deepest desires, is not just what we do, but why we do it, especially when the why is just. Without God, without others in the picture, like a plant trying to get sun from a rock, maybe. It just won't work long term.
That's a heavy thought. The source also uses another word for this root, pride. How does pride link up with this disconnected desire for happiness?
Right, pride. It's described as essentially the belief, the assumption that we can be happy without depending on God as the source, the ultimate source of joy. And tied to that, it's the idea that our happiness doesn't really need to involve caring if others find their joy in God. So it's a desire for happiness, which isn't bad in itself, but it's become corrupted, twisted. And the source says this corruption comes from two main things. First, we're unwilling to see God as the only real source of lasting joy. We think we can find it elsewhere, money, status, whatever, independent of him. Second, we're unwilling to see other people as, designed by God to share our joy in him. We kind of isolate our happiness, make it a solo thing, instead of something we experience together, delighting when others flourish, especially in God. You see it everywhere, maybe online. Seeking validation for my happiness, sometimes ignoring or downplaying others. So it's a self-sufficiency.
So take God out as the source, take others out as sharers in the joy. What's left driving things?
What's left, the text says, is the engine of pride. Picture that, a powerful engine. When God isn't the main source of our joy, and when we don't really care about others' good for God's sake, then our own desire for happiness, which started out good, remember it gets warped, pride then is basically seeking happiness anywhere but in the good of God and the good of others for his sake. And that pursuit, that misdirected drive for satisfaction, is what the source identifies as the root of all brokenness. It's the core problem. Everything else kind of stems from that. It shows that sin isn't just, a list of rules we break, but a fundamental misdirection of our core desire for contentment, a self-centered pull away from God and neighbor.
Okay, let's go back to the command, love your neighbor as yourself. It really does sound like Jesus is telling us, hey, you need to love yourself, doesn't it? But you mentioned the source makes a key distinction.
Yes, and this is so important. He doesn't command self-love, he assumes it. That's a huge point Piper makes. Jesus starts with something that's already there, inborn, deep. Part of what makes us human, our natural desire for our own well-being. It's just a given. It's common to everyone. You don't have to learn it. It's wired in. It's described as this strong, basic instinct for, self-preservation and self-fulfillment. We want to live, and we want to live well with satisfaction. It's natural.
Like a baby crying when it's hungry.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. It's that basic.
So how does Jesus or the source interpreting him define this natural self-love we all have?
It's defined as the deep longing to diminish pain and to increase happiness. Very practical, right? Not abstract.
Yeah.
It includes wanting to live with satisfaction, seeking things like, well, food for ourselves, clothes, a safe place to live, basic needs. It's wanting protection from harm, from danger. It's wanting meaningful ways to spend our days, activities that bring some sort of contentment or purpose. It's seeking friends, people who value us, who spend time with us. That desire for connection, belonging. And it's also wanting our lives to, count for something, to have significance, to feel like our existence matters. These are all part of that assumed self-love.
The source even brings up a really stark example, suicide. That seems like the opposite of self-love. How does that fit?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Pascal's mentioned here, highlighting his point that all men seek happiness. Even suicide, as tragic and misguided as it is presented in the source as, well, a distorted act rooted in self-love. It's seen as an attempt, however desperate, to escape unbearable pain, maybe overwhelming meaninglessness, hopelessness, depression. The thinking might be, anything is better than this. It's a terribly distorted seeking of relief, but it's still rooted in that fundamental desire to lessen pain, to escape suffering. It just underscores how incredibly deep that drive for well-being runs in us, even when it gets tragically twisted. We're not minimizing the pain here, just analyzing the impulse.
And this next point really stood out to me. The source says this inherent self-love, this drive for well-being, is actually good in itself. What does that mean?
It's clarifying that this trait comes from God. The source puts it like, my Father created it. In and of itself, it is good. This really pushes back against the idea that any form of self-interest is automatically bad or sinful. Think about it. Being hungry and wanting food, that's not wrong. Wanting to be warm in winter, not wrong. Desiring safety when things are dangerous, not wrong. Wanting friends, wanting to be liked, not wrong. Wanting your life to have meaning, to make a difference, that's not inherently wrong either. These desires were part of God's original design for humanity before sin entered the picture. So in their pure form, they're good. This helps us see the difference between, say, healthy self-care and corrupted me-first selfishness. Okay, that sets the stage really well. Now let's get to the pivot point. Love your neighbor as yourself. That little word, as. The material calls it very radical. What's the significance of as? Ah, the as.
Yes.
It's absolutely central. It means we're supposed to make our own self-seeking. How we naturally look out for ourselves, pursue our own happiness, make that the measure for our self-giving. Put simply, the way you instinctively pursue your own well-being, that becomes the standard, the benchmark for how you should pursue your neighbor's well-being.
So it's like a direct comparison.
Exactly. It's setting up an equivalency. Use your own drive for good as the blueprint for seeking their good. It's quite a standard.
Can you give some of those specific examples from the source? How does this play out practically?
Sure. It means taking that natural self-focus and turning it outward. So, as you feel that deep pang of hunger and long for food, that specific feeling. So you should long to feed your neighbor when they're hungry, with that same gut-level urgency for their relief.
Not just drop off leftovers, but really feel their need like it's your own.
Right. And as you want decent clothes for yourself, for warmth, dignity, so you should long for your neighbor to have the same, wishing them comfort, just like you wish it for yourself. As you seek safety, maybe locking your door, avoiding bad situations. So you should actively seek comfort and security for your neighbor. Put effort into their safety, their peace of mind. As you want friends, companionship. So you should be a friend, initiate, invite, be present for them. As you study hard for good grades, putting in the hours, so you should work to help your neighbor get good grades. Maybe tutor them, share resources, encourage them, as you appreciate feeling welcome when you walk into a new group. So you should make an effort to make others feel welcome, include them, introduce them, put them at ease.
So it's not just what we want for them, but the way we go about pursuing it, the effort level.
Precisely. The as implies using the same, the same zeal, the same energy, the same creativity, the same persistence. All that stuff we naturally deploy for ourselves, deployed for them. Think about when you're in real trouble, how intensely focused you become, how inventive, how quickly you act. The as means bringing that same level of earnestness, that same, life or death dedication sometimes, to seeking your neighbor's good. The measure is the intense natural way we pursue our own flourishing. Be just as proactive, just as inventive, just as determined for them.
Okay, but honestly, hearing that loving my neighbor with the same zeal and energy I naturally have for myself, that feels huge, demanding. The source even says it can feel very threatening and almost overwhelming. Why does it hit us that way?
Yeah, it does feel overwhelming, doesn't it? And the reason is we immediately jump to this conclusion. If I really take this seriously, it feels like I won't just be loving others as I love myself.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like I'll have to love them instead of loving myself.
Like it's a choice between their happiness and mine.
Exactly. A zero-sum game. There's this fear that if I pour all my energy, my time, my creativity into their well-being with that as myself
Yeah.
intensity, then my own need for happiness, my own desires will just get constantly pushed aside, trampled, ignored. It feels like the neighbor's needs will always come first, always have a stronger claim. And that makes the command seem like it could lead to, well, the death of my own happiness. Like I'll end up depleted, maybe
Yep.
resentful, definitely unfulfilled. You see people burn out in helping roles sometimes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Pouring out without being refilled. This command, just on its own, feels like it demands that kind of unsustainable self-sacrifice.
But this is where the first command comes in, right? Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. How does that connect? How does it solve this feeling of threat?
Yes, this is the crucial connection. This is where the divine solution comes into play, according to the source. The source explains that the first command, loving God, totally isn't separate. It's the foundation for the second. It's what makes loving our neighbor truly possible, and it removes that feeling that doing so means our own happiness gets destroyed. In fact, loving your neighbor as yourself becomes the visible expression, the natural outcome of loving God first.
So not two separate burdens, but connected.
Connected, and the first enables the second. It changes the whole dynamic. It provides the source, the power, so that giving doesn't just deplete us.
Okay, so how does that work? Practically speaking, how does loving God first stop loving my neighbor from feeling like a threat to my own well-being?
Well, the idea is this. Before we try to make our self-seeking the measure of our self-giving, which is what love neighbor's self seems to demand, we first need to make God the focus of our self-seeking. There's a whole point of the first command. It means we take all those deep inherent longings of our self-love, the desire for joy, hope, security, purpose, significance, all of it, and we direct them intentionally toward God. We aim all that longing at Him, seeking satisfaction in Him until He becomes the one who actually satisfies our heart, our soul, our mind.
So redirecting the homing signal, kind of.
Exactly. Reorienting our internal compass. And when God becomes the ultimate source, the target of our deepest quest for satisfaction, everything shifts. Instead of trying to squeeze happiness out of finite things or our own efforts, we find it in the infinite, all-sufficient God Himself. And this isn't just us trying harder, it's seen as the work of the Spirit, reordering our loves.
This sounds like a fundamental change. The source is careful to say this isn't a canceling out of self-love. So if it's not getting rid of it, what is happening to self-love?
It's being fulfilled
Yeah.
and transformed. That's the key distinction. It's not erased. It's re-aimed and met. When we direct that longing for satisfaction, all those deep human desires we talked about toward God, we actually find in Him a satisfaction so immense, so deep, it fills our entire heart. We find a meaning so rich, it fills every empty space in our soul, giving purpose to everything. And we find a wealth of understanding, wisdom, insight that guides and satisfies what our minds are really made for. So the desires aren't gone. They're just pointed to their true ultimate source where they can actually be met. It's like finding the ocean after searching for satisfaction in puddles.
So where does our happiness ultimately come from in this picture? It leads us to discover that God Himself is the never-ending spring of our joy, the infinite fountain, always full, always overflowing. And realizing that fundamentally changes how we see the second command, loving our neighbor. Instead of thinking, oh no, this is threatened, I can't possibly do this without losing myself, we discover something totally different. We find our own well-being isn't threatened by loving God first. It's actually secured. It's perfectly and perpetually supplied by Him. This is close to Piper's idea of Christian hedonism, isn't it? That our greatest joy is found in God.
Yes, that's right. The idea that pursuing maximum pleasure finds its only true fulfillment in pursuing God, the only source of infinite and lasting pleasure. It's not selfish. It's finding ultimate delight in the ultimate being.
The source uses this really striking phrase, my love for Him, God, is the form of my self-love. Can you unpack that a bit more? It sounds almost paradoxical. It does, but it makes sense in this context. It means that all those longings that define our self-love, the drive for joy, security, meaning, connection, are now directed entirely to God. And crucially, they are found and satisfied in Him. So our self-love in this transformed state basically becomes our love for God. They merge. They're the same activity. Our whole pursuit of happiness, our quest for fulfillment, becomes nothing less than the pursuit of God Himself. And the source adds that happiness is found specifically in Jesus.
Huh.
So our drive for joy doesn't vanish. It just finds its true, infinite home in God, where it can finally be fully met without end.
Okay, this is where it all seems to connect. Once our self-love finds its satisfaction in God becoming God-love, how does that change how we love our neighbor?
Right. So this fulfilled self-love, now transformed into God-love, isn't seeking its own satisfaction elsewhere anymore. It's full. And this becomes the guide and the actual substance of our neighbor love. Our natural self-seeking, which got reoriented into God-seeking, is now commanded to simply overflow, to extend itself naturally to our neighbor.
So it's not a grim duty anymore?
Exactly. It's not a forced sacrifice that drains you. It's meant to be a natural outpouring from a heart that's already full, already satisfied in God. The desire for our neighbor's good starts to flow almost spontaneously from the abundance of good we found in God. You're not giving from an empty cup. You're sharing from a perpetually overflowing spring.
The source gives some really vivid examples of this overflow in action. Could you share a few of those? How does a heart satisfied in God actually love?
Yes, the examples really help make it concrete. It's about seeing God's goodness in your own life and then eagerly wanting to extend that same goodness to others. So, for instance, if you long to see and experience more of God's bounty, His generosity in providing food, shelter, clothes for you, and you recognize His hand in it, then you seek to show others the greatness of that same divine bounty through your own generosity, flowing from what you've received in Him. You genuinely want God, who fills your own need, to overflow through you to fill your neighbor's need too. It's giving with gladness, not obligation.
Because you've tasted that goodness yourself.
Exactly. Or if you long to taste more of God's compassion, experiencing His comfort when you're grieving, then you seek to show others more of that same compassion by extending genuine comfort to them in their sorrow. It's not just polite words. It's real empathy flowing from having been truly comforted yourself by God. If you value God's wisdom in helping you navigate tough relationships, then you seek to extend more of God's wisdom to others and their relationship struggles, offering guidance rooted in Him because you've seen its value. If you delight in God's goodness during times of rest, finding real joy and peace, then you extend that goodness by helping others find wholesome rest too, maybe sharing your time or helping lift their burdens so they can rest. If you want to see more of God's saving grace active in your own life, rescuing you, then you actively stretch out that same grace to others who need it, becoming an instrument eager to share the salvation you've received. If you treasure God's personal friendship, His faithfulness through everything, then you extend that kind of friendship to the lonely, being a faithful companion because you know how precious that is.
So that threat we felt earlier that loving my neighbor would deplete me, it's gone now. Why exactly does neighbor love not threaten self-love anymore in this transformed state?
The reason becomes really clear, and it's liberating. Neighbor love doesn't threaten self-love because self-love has become God love. And God love, our love for God, rooted in His love for us and His infinite supply, is not threatened. It's not diminished. It's not exhausted when it's poured out to others. Why? Because God is the never-ending spring, the infinite source of our joy. And from that limitless source, love can flow boundlessly without ever running dry. Our well-being isn't a finite resource we have to hoard. It's sourced in the infinite God. It's an endless well we can draw from and give from.
So giving doesn't cost us in a sense because the supply is infinite.
In the ultimate sense, yes. When your deepest needs are met in an infinite God, extending that fullness doesn't deplete the source. Like sharing sunlight, the sun isn't diminished.
Wow. That really is a different way to think about these commands. It shifts it from feeling like this heavy burden, this impossible sacrifice, to, well, a joyful overflow. It gives us a whole new lens for looking at our own desires, how they connect to caring for others, and how it's all anchored in our relationship with God. It changes the picture of satisfaction.
Precisely. What this deep dive really shows is that real, genuine kindness and love for others don't have to come from gritting our teeth and sacrificing reluctantly. Instead, it can spring from a divine fullness, from being satisfied in God first. It invites us, really, to see that our deepest desire, the desire for happiness that drives so much of what we do, finds its true home, its ultimate satisfaction in God. And when it does, we're actually freed up and empowered to extend that same good, that same pursuit of true happiness to everyone around us, without fearing we'll run out, It's a picture of a truly flourishing life for us and for our neighbor.
So, for you, our listener, here's something to mull over. If that natural longing for happiness we all have is actually a good, God given thing,
Yeah.
how might intentionally aiming all those longings toward God change your day to day? Not just how you seek your own contentment, but how you find yourself giving to the people you meet. Does it change how you view even small acts of kindness or service? It's definitely something compelling to think about. We hope this prompts some more reflection for you.